I'll ask you a little more broadly about your views about Israel today, Israel, Palestine, what Israel's doing in Gaza, and more broadly, I suppose, what you think that people like me, who are very critical of Israel and indeed have fundamental questions about the whole idea of a state that privileges Jews over Palestinians, what are some of the fundamental things that you think we get wrong?
So I think I can answer all three parts of that question with the following anecdote. I went to kibbutz near Oz, which was absolutely decimated on October 7th, and I met with a woman named Irit. Irit was part of an organization called Road to Recovery, where for 30 years of her life, she would drive to the Gaza border, and she would take free of charge Gazan children, Gazan women, anyone who needed medical care in Israel. She would drive them to Israeli hospitals at her own expense. She did this for 20, 30 years of her life. And October 6th, both Irit and her community, as well as the neighboring kibbutzim, they were organizing a peace rally where they were going to protest the Israeli government that they viewed as far right, and that they were going to talk about the need for coexistence and living alongside Gazans and the Palestinian people. Irit was thanked for her kindness, for her altruism, by having her home incinerated. She, but for the grace of God, survived along with her dog and daughter. Her neighbor, Oded Lifshitz, was taken as a hostage. Oded was very famous in Gaza because Oded also took Gazan civilians and children to Israeli hospitals on his own dime. He was taken as a captive. I believe he was actually killed in captivity as well. And what I think you get wrong, and I think what the campus activists get wrong, is I'll sort of answer it with a question. Please articulate exactly how Irit and Oded and the very far left quasi-socialist peace-loving kibbutzniks are supposed to live with or alongside individuals whose starting position is the freeing of all Jews from the river to the sea. Because we often think of October 7th as a Hamas-led charge against Israel. It was not just Hamas, it was Palestinian civilians. It was young Gazans with glee in their eyes who tried to slaughter and rape and burn and kill every last Jew they could find. And that, to me, is what changed my entire political calculus vis-a-vis Israel, is what would you tell Irit, that she should be living alongside these people? She did nothing but kindness to them, and that is how she was repaid. And that, to me, was the biggest wake-up call.
It's so interesting the way you phrase it, talking about the question for you of the horror of what Hamas did on October 7th. Raises for you the question of how an Israeli Jew like Irit or other people in the Gaza envelope should be expected to live alongside Palestinians, given that many of them supported October 7th. What's interesting to me about that question is that I hear almost that same exact question asked so often by Palestinians, which is, how should we be expected to live alongside Israeli Jews when most Israeli Jews support a plan for our mass expulsion, when most Israeli Jews support what Israel has done in Gaza, which has been now described as genocide by Israel's own leading human rights organizations, B'Tselem, not to mention the Association of Genocide Scholars around the world. So my answer would in some ways be the same to both, which is that I believe in the principle that people should be treated equally under the law, irrespective of their religion, ethnicity, or race. For me, it's an extension of the idea that all human beings are equal in the image of God, and so that people should be treated equally under the law. And I don't only believe that morally and theologically, I believe it produces greater safety, because when everyone has a voice in government, it means that the likelihood that people are going to take up arms goes way down. Because when people, if you think of Palestinian citizens of Israel, why do Palestinian citizens of Israel use violence less than Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza? I think it's because they have some mechanism to have the Israeli government listen to them, even though they suffer a lot of discrimination. So I genuinely believe that not only as a matter of principle, but as a matter of safety, that both Israeli Jews and Palestinians are safer living in a country based on equality under the law.
The problem with that answer, it is such a dangerous moral equivalence. When you say, well, yes, it is true that Gazan civilians and their elected representative raped and butchered and killed, but at the same time, a great majority of the Israeli people support a forced mass expulsion, which, number one, I'm not sure if that's true. I'll have to check the statistics. But number two, what genocide exactly was occurring on October 6th? What rockets were landing on Gaza on October 6th? What exactly was kibbutz Nir Oz or Be'eri or any of these peace-loving kibbutzim, the most far left and Israeli populace, what exactly were they doing doing that caused the Gazan people to be forced to mass slaughter and rape. And I think that's, again, one of the problems that your camp has is the absolute refusal to recognize that Palestinians have moral agency. They have human agency. They can make choices in life. And so much in the leftist movement, which I was a part of for all of my life up until October 7th, is believing that if you are part of the victimhood Olympics and if you score high enough on that totem pole, then there is really nothing you can do that would not be justified or accepted. If you're Luigi Mangione and you had back problems and you believe that the best way of responding is by murdering and assassinating Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO, then every single age demographic in the United States of America has condemned that as an assassination, with one glaring exception: 18 to 24-year-olds, because we have been fed a diet of political indoctrination that if you are part of the oppressed class, you have carte blanche freedom to do whatever it is you would like to rid yourself of that. And I believe that the far left movement have included Palestinianism in that they could do whatever it is that they would like because they're just so oppressed. They have human agency. They can make choices as any human being does. And I treat the Palestinians like adults, and I would wish that my friends on campuses would do the same thing.
How many Palestinians do you know well?
Well, when I was living in Israel, I knew a lot of them. Now
I mean,
that
like that you have ongoing political conversations with. Like in the last week, how many have you talked to about politics?
Ongoing, not as many, but that's not a fault of me. That is, as I said, I was very, very far left. I did a Shabbos in the West Bank. When I was in yeshiva, I wouldn't go to Hebron because it was part of the occupied territories. We had, after October 7th, a producer of a major network show reach out to me, and he said, we want to do a public debate on Harvard's campus so you can model for the rest of the country what respectful dialogue can look like. And you, Shabbos, will be the token pro-Israel Jew, and we will find a token pro-Palestinian Muslim. I said, great, this is exactly what our country needs, and we'll end the debate with a handshake. To this day, Peter, that interview has never been aired. It's never been filmed because we cannot find a single pro-Palestinian supporter at Harvard University who is willing to debate us because, in their own words, we don't debate Zionists, we don't legitimize your narrative. That is an anti-normalization movement that is normalized and accepted on these campuses. I will use your platform right now to say, any Palestinian who wants to have a conversation or a debate, or I will want to learn from your experiences, anytime, anywhere. The problem is not me. The problem is not us. I will gladly debate and dialogue. The problem is the other side saying that we do not normalize the opinion of Zionists, Israelis, or Jews.
Well, I think you were right that there are plenty of pro-Palestinian folks who don't want to do public events with Zionists. It's also the case that Hillel, for instance, wouldn't allow a Palestinian anti-Zionist to speak at Hillel, and most American synagogues wouldn't. So in both camps, you have often an unwillingness to debate positions that you consider beyond the pale. But in terms of private conversations, I would be really surprised if there weren't plenty of people who are actually willing to have private conversations with you. And the reason I raise it is because your depiction of the way Palestinians or people on the left think just doesn't jibe to me as someone who rarely goes more than a day or two without a conversation with Palestinians, public or private, and has had, I don't know, maybe 50 or so, I don't know, roughly, since I started doing these calls. I don't hear people generally saying that anything that anyone does who is oppressed is legitimate. That, to me, it doesn't jive with my own experience. And I also think, and the other point is, I don't think that the argument that there was nothing that people in Gaza had a right to be upset about on October 6th jibes with me. Nothing that Israel was doing justified targeting civilians for murder, for kidnapping. Absolutely. And I know many, many, many Palestinians who agree with that. But on October 6th, people in Gaza, right, most of them are not from Gaza. Most of them are from families of people who were expelled from Israel in 1948, right? So these are mostly from refugee families. The reason they're in the Gaza Strip, this incredibly overcrowded area, right, is precisely because their families were expelled and they were not allowed to return. If that happened to your family, don't you think that that would create a grievance? Even if some of the people in the Gaza kibbutzim were wonderful people, and certainly they were, I totally agree with you. Don't you think, again, none of this justifies murder, but don't you think that if you knew that the lands that your families have been expelled from had been taken by other people, that would create a genuine grievance?
Peter, it has happened to me. It's happened to the overwhelming majority of Jews alive on planet Earth. We were expelled from Germany and Poland during the Holocaust.
And we have the right to return.
Do I have a right to go back to Poland?
You absolutely do, Shabbos. No
No,
question you do. Of
no,
course you do.
first, you're ignoring historical reality.
This has been a free preview of my conversation. If you'd like to hear the rest and support my work, please consider subscribing at peterbeinart.substack.com.